You know, it's been a void these last few weeks on Sportswire Radio without XCW coverage. And we thought, you know what better way than to bring back XCW coverage by having a man that we just saw literally, I don't know, about maybe 3 hours or so ago, and he was in the semi-main event for a championship match that I think stole the show. He's going to tell us why, plus what he's up to and some. Some have said he's an EBW reject. Some have said he's an EBW hopeful. But what I do know is that he's accomplished a lot in XCW so far. He's been a hardcore champion 5 times. He's been a tag team champion. And he's even been a world heavyweight champion. And he's going to tell us about all of that and some. And where do we go from here? Going into next season, and maybe talk about a little bit of a campaign he might have to try to win an award for this season. This man needs no further introduction, but because he is 6'3", nearly 400 pounds, he is easily one of the biggest men to have ever come on Sportswire Radio, and many of his peers in the locker room, EBW, XCW, everything else in between, have gotten that introduction. It is now his time to get the introduction that he deserves. So with that, without further ado, here on the Sports Report, the number one level sports show. His name is Julian Boyd Jacobs.
That's one hell of an introduction.
I don't think Trinity's giving you that these days. She's usually giving you kind of like the, I don't want to say quiet introduction, but certainly not the joyful one that we give you here on Sportswire Radio, sir.
That's a very good intro.
Well, I've been doing this at this point, I think, for 5 years going on, and I've done these so many times over and over. And you are basically the void that it returns us to Sportswire Radio coverage. And certainly, it's good to be back home with XCW, to quote CM Punk. But obviously, enough of all those residuals. It is good to have you, my friend. And for those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio, Julian Void Jacobs, we saw you just a little while ago in the semi-main event for those XCW Tag Team Championships that you certainly wanted to take away from our guest a few weeks ago in the Essential One, Rob Slater, and the first real wrestler, our Hall of Famer, Mr. Justin Parsley. Parsley's himself to EBW, but you fell a little bit short. So for those that are listening and watching, talk about the match and where it all unfolded.
So, going into it, I know, Mitchell's been gone for extensive amount of time. And he's made a return this year, and I guess Fletch, he needed somewhere to put me for a little bit because, I had missed a show this year and it kind of threw off the whole writing of the season. So he had to have a place to throw me and to throw Mitchell. And Mitchell and I worked together quite a few years ago in a one-on-one. He was part of the old EBW with the old blue shirts.
Yes.
Me and him came out in that last.
That's why we were on TV. You guys were wearing the blue shirts, and then
we were
wearing the red shirts.
It's kind of a throwback for him, and it was kind of like a kind of throw us in EBW. We're part of the group or whatnot, but we're not yet, at least. I don't know what's going on with all that. But no, I guess Fletch is over the last 9 years that I've been doing XCW, I guess I've kind of built that trust of Fletch to know that I can, not only work with new talent, like Eric Mason, Hunter Halkin,
Evan Phoenix, I think you were trying to mention,
yeah,
some of the younger talent that have been kind of incorporated.
yeah,
Unholy to throw in there. They have been more of a younger talent than compared to some of the veterans. Sure,
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you've become, in a way, it's funny because I was listening to commentary. And by the way, big shout out to Blackheart, because Blackheart actually mentioned
yeah,
yours truly. Because I guess he mentioned in one of the clips I screwed up Parsley and Slater's names. Obviously, that's a here nor there, but I appreciate the kind words, at least mentioning me. But
yeah,
it's funny because in that match, actually, of the four of you actually kind of had the least experience, and that's funny because you've been in XCW like for almost 10 years. It's kind of like
yeah,
wild in a sense.
yeah. When you put it in that kind of that kind of perspective, you really don't really think, because Parsley, I think he and Josh, like, I can't remember exactly if he was one of the Mount Rushmores of XCW, like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Well,
I can't
yeah,
remember
I
the
mean,
whole past.
I think that Justin wasn't quote unquote on the Mount Rushmore of XCW, but in the scene that they
Yeah,
were all a part of, Chris Jones, certainly Kurt Acid, aka
yeah,
Venom, Genocide, all those different people that were a part of that. He was in that. So
right.
certainly in terms of their experience, 4 decades, Corey
Yeah,
Lee. I mean, he's another one that didn't start at the beginning of them, but because he's kind of what he's done in the ring. But it's, those 4 or 5 different, like I said, Kurt Acid, certainly Corey Lee,
yeah,
Fletch, Chris Jones, and then obviously Parsley. And if you want to throw in there, certainly Slater's experience. And yet
yeah.
you have all this experience, but you're kind of like a newer
I'm
guy
still
compared
kind
to
of,
them,
I'm
which is
still kind of,
crazy,
yeah,
I
I'm
think.
still the young talent. It's like, and the funny thing is, I've been doing this almost a decade, and I'm only 26 years old. I started in XCW when I was 17. So, the fact that like guys like the founder, Fletch, I think he just turned
30.
34 this
I
year.
was gonna say, yeah, because I remember I had him.
Yeah,
He was 33, and his birthday passed, I
yeah,
think, last week. So all those, those guys. I think Parsley's just a little bit older, if I'm not mistaken. So those guys are in their mid
yeah,
30s, almost
yeah.
kind of
And
mid to late
it's
30s.
crazy. It's just so crazy because 10 years. April 19th of 2024 will be my official 10th year of XCW. So it's like, yeah, I've got 10 years, but it's like these guys, Chris Jones has been a part of wrestling like he's got 4 decades. Like he's been
I know
wrestling,
Chris Jones,
you know?
Chris Jones, obviously a man that you've been trying to get into the good graces of. He started in this game in 1996. Let me repeat
Yep,
that. 1996. That was before people had the internet. That was
yep,
before really people had cell phones. That was really before people had these smartphones and these internet laptops and these gaming systems we have now. I mean, think about that for a second. This man started when probably people, the way that they kind of hung out with each other or actually went out and did backyard wrestling was basically they knocked on someone's door and hoped that they were home. Listen, I remember growing up, right? I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Like, I remember being around in 1996. I'm about the same age as Fletch and
yep,
Chris Jones. I remember growing up, and it was like, I didn't have a phone. If I was going to hang out with somebody, I had to knock on the door, ring the bell in their apartment building, and if they weren't home, I was out of luck for the day. That
yep,
put that into context for a second.
yep. And the crazy thing, like I said, he started in 1996. I was a year before I was born, man. Like that was a full year.
Well,
And
I
then
wasn't
like
going to ask about that, but the point is, it shows you his experience. It shows you,
exactly,
even
yeah,
guys like James Cerebral, who've been, another EBW original, and all these different guys
yeah,
that have been in the roster. So I mean, you
yeah.
know,
It's
it's crazy.
yeah, and then in that context, obviously Fletch has a lot of trust in Chris Jones because he's been doing it for so long. But
Sure.
the fact that Fletch has that confidence in me to know that I can, lead a match with Mitchell Maverick and Parsley and Rob Slater, who just made a Parsley came back last year.
Yep.
Rob Slater came back, I think, earlier this year or
Yeah,
very,
I think
very,
I
very
want
late
to
of
say
last year.
I want to say maybe he came back earlier this year. I think we were speaking about
Yeah,
that a couple weeks ago when he came on the show. Sure.
yeah. So, and then Fletch had, I've been kind of a mainstay, for the last 9 years, and it's just kind of surreal that Josh, can be like, hey, Julian, I need you to, lead these three guys for a little bit, get them up to speed and, and actually, have that trust in that knowing I'm going to commit and, get these guys to where he wants them to be along with myself. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I will get to comment in a second. I want to say hello to everybody for sure. We'll definitely get into everybody in a second. But, let's talk about the match for a second and leave
Yeah.
aside the outcome for a second. That was a
Yeah.
really intense match. Now, I know Parsley and Slater have had a lot of success of late, and they've definitely done very well as a team. But I felt, and tell me your thoughts on this, let's say analytically, I think this was their best match. I know they had the matches with Unholy. I know that they've definitely done a lot in terms of the storyline purposes, but I felt that watching that match, and that's why I said I think in a lot of ways it did steal the show. I mean, certainly, listen, JJ Kelty and Jay Ellis, obviously that
that was
obviously
crazy.
after what happened with you guys from the opening match between Brogan and Cerebral, but you guys, in terms of what you guys did in that kind of match, the spots you had, the outside, Parsley's move off the top rope, and that's everything what you guys, the double super kicks, and what you guys were basically doing to each other inside and out, so they're almost that you guys didn't beat out the count. Talk about that match and why was that match so good? I think in terms of watching.
All right, so yeah, absolutely. And I think the match was good because Parsley and Slater have both stepped up their game a lot. They've both grown into their personalities and their move sets. And I'm not knocking Unholy. I'm not knocking Shane Shaw. I'm not knocking DJ Walbert. But what I am
got
going
their
to
own
say,
problems right now. Unholy right now, they've got their own problems right now.
I'm not going to knock on them, but the tier of talent for me and Mitchell versus Shane Shaw and DJ Walbert, I feel like they're here, and me and Mitchell are a little bit here. And
well, literally, sir, you are actually right up there. Literally, like you actually are up there.
I mean, but yeah, I feel like they maybe it's just my mindset, maybe it's just the whole thing, but I feel like I make the guys around me step up. I feel like I make them perform better. Not only like I'm not trying to sound cocky. I'm not saying I'm the best in the company. By far I'm not, but I do feel like my talents are up there, and I feel like when people get the ring with me, they want to up their ante because they want to show that their caliber is close or same as mine.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you why I agree, because you look at Parsley and Slater. Now, I know Slater's tall, no question, but if you put the two of them together, they still don't weigh as much as you. But
That's true.
and all kidding aside, though, I think when you're a team like Parsley and Slater, and you certainly want to prove that you're quote unquote the foundation of tag teams, you're the foundation of XCW, you have to go up there against teams and adversaries like yourself in Mitchell Maverick, who probably might be, in terms of size, maybe the tallest tag team around, or at least that I've seen that's come on here. So it's almost like if you don't step up your game, then if you're going to say that you are the foundation of tag teams,
right,
you are certainly the foundation of XCW, then it ain't going to deliver.
Yeah. And that's another thing too, is, Mitchell has, he had some ring rust, we're trying to knock some of that off because, he was going for an extensive time. And, it's a little difficult, because when you have a guy that has ring rust and he's your tag partner, and, maybe some spots get a little botched, or, somebody slips and, whatnot. It kills you when you're watching it, because you're like, God damn, I could have, maybe I could have done that spot a little bit better, but you have to trust, in the process. And I think Mitchell's really starting to really pick it up. And I think he's starting to come into his own too, which is really kind of making the tag spot more enjoyable, because I know Mitchell's trying his best. I know Parsley and Slater are going to give their best, even
Oh,
though.
well, listen, Parsley and Slater, now they've come on here and proven they want to prove
Yeah,
they're the best out there, so they have no choice. I mean,
yeah,
Parsley, again, he's now a Hall of Famer. So Parsley, almost every time he's in the ring and he doesn't deliver, I mean, people are going to look at it like Justin Parsley, like you're supposed to be a Hall of Famer. You're supposed to be the first real wrestler. You're supposed to be this guy that everybody wants to square up against. So if he doesn't
right,
deliver, I think the pressure's on him more than anybody else in this locker room right now because he has been the man. He's the guy with the following. He's the guy when Justin Parsley talks, people tune in. When Justin Parsley's in the ring, so all these different things. I think the pressure has been on him more than anyone else. So he has to deliver. He has to.
And honestly, as much as I like to say it, from breaking kayfabe and just being another guy in the locker room. I love to see it. I really do.
The competition. No, listen.
As the competition, right? I hate it. I hate every second of it.
But you know what, though? But that's what competition is supposed to do. Yeah. It's supposed to make everybody around you better. It was like in basketball. I saw in one of the documentaries, you guys were shooting baskets there at the gym there in the St. Paul's gym, right? And Michael Jordan was arguably the greatest basketball player. Kobe Bryant was second, right? And what made them great players was that they had certain personalities that kind of you didn't like them so much, but you respected the way they conducted their work. So it made you want to raise your game because you're on your toes and knowing that guys like Parsley are going to be out there and they're going to try to steal the show. They're going to go out there and it doesn't matter where they are in the card. Doesn't matter who they're squaring off with. They're going to look to basically kind of say, hey, this is my show. And especially a guy like Parsley, because we know the history between he and Fletch. You talked about him being on a Mount Rushmore, not the XCW Mount Rushmore. It's because Fletch and him, they didn't work together. It was really because of Kurt Acid that we've even seen Parsley. So he's probably got more that he'd like to prove to people that really didn't get a chance to watch him over 10 years or more.
That's true. That is true. And, Kurt Acid, going to him, when I first started, man, Kurt Acid, he was the guy that, I'd finish up a match in my, my rookie year, my first, few years when I was, just getting my feet wet a little bit, learning, he would always be the guy that I would, walk up to, man, hey, how was that? Like, what can I do better? Kurt Acid was always supportive, but then he constructive criticism, and, as a, young guy, you got to take it. And
oh, absolutely. Listen, a guy like him with his career, what he's done,
absolutely.
In Indiana, I mean, it's like if he says something, okay, yes, sir, and tell me how high, tell me how far you can win, where, and how.
Yep, and I have a lot of respect for that guy, man.
So do I. So do I. And it's unfortunate that he's not here with us, but I really believe that, and I say this all the time in these spots, as we are here with Julian Void Jacobs of XCW, and he has certainly been one of the mainstays of the roster here over the past 10 years. XCW just finished their 2023 season. Their last show was called Final Chapter. You can watch it here in the XCW links below, and especially on YouTube. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportzwire Radio, the #1 global radio station. We are very happy to be back home covering XCW, our gold standard in this sport. But, he's looking down and he's smiling, Kurt Acid, because he sees what this company has become. He has seen to the fact that we have a roster that people from all over the place have come here and wanted to prove why they belong. He is smiling because of what you've done in your match that just took place, where I'm going to break kayfabe, if you don't mind, before I get to comments. Mr. Parsley, I asked him about the match afterwards. I told Mr. Parsley, don't tell me who wins. Don't tell me who loses. Obviously, I'm going to watch the match. I'm going to be home because we had a segment earlier in the day, and I was going to watch the whole show. Usually I watch the shows and I come back, I go back and forth, but I always watch the shows. But today I was here to watch the full thing in real-time motion. And Mr. Parsley told me that you did a phenomenal job, and it was you that in a lot of ways put that match together, and why that match was maybe the match of the night, and why it was such a good match for people to see. I mean, that's certainly high praise from Mr. Parsley. Mr. Parsley, he doesn't give praise too often in that way.
No, he don't. No, he don't. But no, I mean, as humbling as that is, it's also true. Before the match started, I gathered up, us four, and I practically planned out how the match was going to start, how the match, the middle of the match was going to go. The only real thing that I didn't plan that Slater and Parsley kind of talked about and then brought up was that big dive off the top rope.
Yeah, that was the spot where it was toward the end of the match where Parsley goes up there, and it was kind of like, did he just do that? I know obviously there was the shot after that with Leon Lux off the basketball net, but Parsley one was like, is he really going to do that with you and Mitchell? I mean, that was like, life altering. It could have been.
Yeah, and and I have a very good reputation with the guys in the locker room of being one of the more safer opponents, And Parsley knew I wasn't going to drop him. I wasn't going to let him land on his head, But no, he wanted to do that spot, and I was like, all right, man, I got you, And, thankfully, it worked out.
No pressure, right? No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
Right?
Yeah, of course
not. But obviously, we'll certainly come back to the match. I have a lot of comments, and I like to say hello to some people here. First of all, let me get to some people. Let me do that here. I just lost my comments. There we go. First of all, let's say hello to my buddy, Mr. Ron. Ron is out there in Pennsylvania. He says, hey, Tom, how are you? I'm doing great. Thank you for tuning in. I want to say hello to one of our buddies in XCW whose father-in-law is a referee, and his name is Festus Davis. You definitely know Festus Davis very well. Mr. Michael Blackheart. Void, miss you, man. We were there when Will Smith fell off the ladder. He also wants to say, Void is the 6-foot mountain of sexy, but he's no Justin Parsley. Well, obviously, he's a lot taller than Justin Parsley, so he couldn't be Justin Parsley, right? He couldn't be Justin Parsley. Not Justin, but,
thank you, Blackheart. That means a lot, buddy.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to say hello to the real Chris Craven out there. Yes, definitely. Hello, Coach. I hope you're doing well. I have a feeling going to see you real soon. Skulls, the Soul Hunter out there in California, reliving the golden days. Also, Rob Slater coming back at Extreme King. Yes, thank you for reminding us earlier in the year.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Michael. Michael's always been one of my favorites. Michael is always messaging me off the air. He's like, when are you coming on? He's like, when are you talking XCW? And I said, well, now you can see it's good to be back home. To quote CM Punk on Raw, it's good to be back home. Sportswire covering XCW. And I also want to say hello to somebody out there in the friendly confines of Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, Mrs. Zena, the lovely Zena, my warrior princess. She says hello, and she says basically that you really did a great job in the match. You really did a great job in the ring, and she really is happy to see you here because you were filling a void of XCW coverage here. I want to say hello also to my likely guest coming up early next week, probably Tuesday, another big man, Mr. Big Tex of Dominating Breakout Wrestling. You can check them out on YouTube. Very similar to XCW, kind of neck and neck between two of my favorite companies out there. And he says, good evening, Mr. Tex. I hope you're doing well. I want to say hello to my beer hockey goaltender friend out there from the state of Mass. Yes, he's a great beer league goalie. He's one of my favorites out there on YouTube. Trying to get him to, I think he does some type of podcast. I'm trying to get his shows to air on my website. That is Mr. Beer League himself. He says, hey, Reverend Thomas, we need to talk hockey soon. Yes. Call me Tom, but yes, we'll figure that out real soon. And speaking of people that want to say something, I want to say hello to Mr. Justin Parsley. Mr. Parsley, would you like me to bring up Mr. Parsley's comment up?
You can if you want. I'm
it's
down
up to you.
for
You're
it.
6'3". You're 6'3".
Yeah, go for it. You know what?
All right, then we'll get to another special comment in a second. Not only do we specialize in foundation work, but we're also breaking glass ceilings, hoping we get another chance to share a ring together. Void. Now, I didn't know that Parsley's and Slater, the real ones, were actually in the business of construction and maintenance, and I guess they're doing cement work, foundations, glass ceilings, renovation, construction work.
Certifications.
Huh? Yeah, I didn't know, but what do you say to that comment there with Mr. Parsley's himself?
I always love facing Parsley, man. He's a fun dude. The promos get heated. There's nobody on this planet that I'd rather shoot a promo with than Justin Parsley. That's just how it is.
I gotta tell you
I
the truth.
swear.
That's why I put him in my Hall of Fame. Aside from his ring work, he definitely deserves it. But
Yeah,
he's come on here twice, and I feel like
man.
he's come on here twice, and it's like he says something that people remember for weeks. That's why he's
100%.
here.
And and that is there's only 3 guys in this company that could talk so good, in my opinion. And number 1 would be ACT.
Yes.
Number 2, Fletch, and number 3, Justin Parsley. When those 3 people talk,
I had Fletch
listens.
here. I think Fletch was like, I think when we did the interview, and it was like, I think 2 hours, and he was like, you still want to talk? I was like, well, my voice may not agree, but yeah, Fletch can definitely talk. And ACT, well, that's where he's from. He's got a Harvard education, so obviously that's why.
Of course, he's the big brains of the whole operation.
Figuratively and literally, some might say. But yeah, Mr. Parsley, definitely a big part of things here. And I want to say hello to somebody that we saw at Halloween Harvest and the post show, and he was sitting there in the show, Mr. Jack Delta, of course. Mr. Delta, somebody know very well, love Jack Delta. Obviously, Jack Delta. I actually would like to bring you on, Mr. Delta, back. We were actually supposed to have done another spot, but maybe I'll talk to Mr. Delta off the air. He says, absolutely love the catalog of people Tom has interviewed. He's really digging through the trenches of all the current BYW and showcases really well. Thank you, Mr. Delta. But, what do you want to say about Mr. Delta? Because, I saw him in the post show of Halloween Harvest. I saw him sitting there in the show. And, I know Mr. Delta is obviously doing some different things. And obviously we love Jack, and we hope to get Jack back on one of these days. But, I would love to see Jack Delta if it could happen with the powers that be. And Mr. Delta felt like it. Maybe he would like to come, if I could say it again, use the line to steal it, to come back home to XCW. Maybe that would be something nice, that he would want to come back home where he belongs in XCW.
All I'm saying is I wouldn't say no to a dark match to Jack Delta.
How about encounters? We got encounters coming up. Episode 1's coming up 2 weeks from today. On top of that, we got Viewer's Choice. And we got encounters. And next week, we have another show with Chris Jones. We're going to get to Chris Jones in a second, because you got some history of Chris Jones, some current history.
That's true.
We're going to get to that. We're going to definitely get to that. We're going to be really digging there in the trenches for sure. So I hope to see Mr. Delta back home. And I can't wait to maybe see a future encounter show between Mr. Delta and Julian Void Jacobs, who, by the way, a former XCW champion of the world. Let me get some more comments here. Michael Blackheart would like to say, I met Void in 2019 and watched him run the ropes. Scary, but the man has impeccable footwork. I want to give you a solid point on that. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you a different take, and tell me your thoughts on this. I've interviewed a lot of people. I've interviewed guys who are professionals, guys who are, in the independents, guys who are in England. One of my friends is Vito Fratelli, who was number 390 in the PWI 500. But the point is that for a big man, in order for a big man to be successful in this sport, you got to have the footwork. You got to be able to know your way around. You got to be able to do certain spots. Obviously, what you spoke about with Parsley, but how important for you in the success that you've had in ring, leave aside the wins and losses, Mr. Jacobs, how important has your footwork been in order to have been able to do what you have done, to be one of those guys that people in this locker room want to continue to work with?
Well, so if the footwork isn't there, then the tie-ups, the headlocks,
those holds, those punches,
the whole arm wrench, none of that's going to work out. So, and you got to have good footwork for, just the basic, just the lockup. You got to have the footwork you got to know your ring. You got to, if a certain board is offline, you got to know where that's at. It's just important. And it's also a big part of keeping your opponent safe too, because if you move the wrong way, if you got somebody in a headlock, you move the wrong way, you have their neck right here in your arm, right? If you make one wrong move, you can really mess them up. Even if it's just a slight, little mishap and you grab their neck too hard, you can cause a spinal thing. You can cause a whole neck,
Well, we saw years ago the spot with it was on SmackDown, the D'Lo Brown and Draws, where it was during a match. D'Lo Brown went to do his regular move, and unfortunately, speaking of footwork, some people might know what I'm talking about. He slipped up, and Draws, who passed away not too long, God rest his soul, actually was paralyzed because of this move. And they never showed the match on TV, but basically it was like he could tell when he slipped up, and when Droz came down, he was like, "Oops." It was like, and that incident, unfortunately, he never walked again.
Yeah, and I don't ever want a mistake from me to cost one of my locker room guys anything. Like you know what I mean? Like, we might have a strong competition, but I love every single one of these dudes. Like, they're brothers.
And I love the locker room as well.
Yeah, like,
this is a very tight-knit locker room. This is a locker room that's a very tight-knit locker room here.
That's true. That is very true. We all are very close, I feel. Safety matters to me. So with safety comes footwork.
Absolutely.
And with footwork comes a 6'3" man that can run like a freight train.
No, you're very impressive in the ring. There's no question that your size and your ability speaks for itself, and why I think you have been in one of the intriguing storylines. And I did, by the way, try to bring up to Mr. Parsley and Mr. Slater that you guys may not be EBW rejects. I think I tried to use the word EBW hopefuls, because if I look at EBW, and I'll get to more and say a little more people, but EBW could maybe use you guys, because
EBW is all about the gold, baby. And the more gold we can get, and there's 2 of them with a tag title, the more gold we get, the better chance we have.
And right now, EBW doesn't have as much gold as it once did. I mean,
exactly.
James got the hardcore title. Miado Diaz lost the EBW title. Brady Branson lost the XCW title. So it would be important, I think, for EBW to want to get some gold, and that's why maybe you guys are hopefuls, not rejects, as Slater and Parsley said. You guys, I think, are hopefuls.
Yeah, we're hopefuls. Once we get these tag titles from the real ones, we're going to bring EBW two gold titles that have the same logo.
On top of that, listen, Parsley and Slater aren't necessarily XCW loyalists like a Jay Ellis or an ACT or Broken O'Shea. They're in the business for themselves. So at the end of the day, it's really a double win for EBW. It's a double win if you guys eventually could come back away and take some gold, because that shows that EBW is back. And, EBW, I think, might very well be back on the premises going into next season, because we know at the main event, Hayden Vex has now won his shot to take on ACT. And we also saw now that Fletch, through the board of directors, has relieved Venom of his duties as general manager. So, Mr. Julian Boyd Jacobs, it looks to me like EBW could be back starting next season, back on top. And this could be a big opening for you guys to be hopefuls, to help out. And I think that's going to be where I see big things ahead, probably for you guys in EBW.
Could be. We very well could be. And that'd be fun, because, I mean, I've held the international champion. I've held the new age. And it would be nice to bring one of those, hopefully to EBW. But we'll see. We'll see how that all goes.
Well, I'll come back to that. I'll definitely come back to that. I want to get to some comments, but first, let me do some plugs. If you want to follow XCW, please follow them on YouTube at XCW Shelbyville. Also, XCW All Access, where you can watch footage of all sorts. Instagram, XCW_Shelbyville. Twitter at XCW Wrestling 1. Facebook, XCW Shelbyville. And if you want to find out the history of XCW, the 20-year history, and why it's the gold standard, the website is right there. If you want to buy a shirt, you want to go to the shops, and you want to buy a Julian Boyd Jacobs shirt, you want to buy an EBW shirt even, you want to buy a Justin Parsley shirt, whatever shirt you might want to buy, those are all those links. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportzwire Radio, and I will be back tomorrow with more coverage in your chair, where you're supposed to have a slew of stars from the IMF, and apparently some of these guys in the IMF even addressed Mr. Parsley and Mr. Slater, especially Omen Black and Soldier GP. They're going to be here live at some point, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're in XCW right now, if you're in DBW, if you're in TBW, if you're in ROEW, wherever you might be, you might want to be tuned into that one, because they're going to talk about probably some of those people. Opportunity to address, especially Mr. Parsley and Mr. Slater. And they're going to talk about their first ever live show called Winter Clash 2 weeks from Saturday. So that'll be definitely one you won't miss. And if you like what you hear from us here on Sportswire Radio, I would hope that you give us a plug here on our new blog. We have a tumblr.com at Sportswire Radio on Tumblr where you can find out all our great stuff. Also, if you want to listen to us, you don't want to see my long hair and my mutton chop 4 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can check us out on sportswireradio.org. It's an internet radio station which I own. I provide all the maintenance, all the cost. If you have a podcast out there, if you want to have a radio show stream, whatever it might be, music, I take care of that. All you have to do is get in touch with me. If you want to watch all past, present, and future XCW shows, you can do all of that right here. And we are here with Mr. Julian Void Jacobs, who is almost just about done it all here at XCW, and we're going to continue to talk more about it here. So let me get to some more comments here. Mr. Parsley wants to say it's real work. So, yeah, well, that's...
Of course he does. Of course he does.
Well, good. Well, that was a good one. Big Tex wants to say, might have to check out XCW, and also Mr. Void, kind of like yourself, as he's a bigger guy also. We think we can hit like a tank, but yet we're the safest people to work with. That reminds me, if you saw the documentary a few years ago on Yokozuna, and wrestlers used to talk about the fact that Yokozuna, he was Yokozuna, right? But Yokozuna, guys would say he was actually one of the safest people to work with because, in a way, he knew his size. He knew that certainly what he could do. But he actually, in real terms, or just in Parsley's terms, real terms, REEL, actually was one of the safer guys anybody could work with. So that's the point of Big Tex with, and that's why you're one of the safer guys also.
Yeah, I definitely know my size. I definitely know what I'm capable of. I know my limits. I'm not gonna be the guy to jump off the top of a cage onto a guy like Justin Parsley and think Justin's gonna be all right. That's just not how it is, But no, like a good example of that was when there was when the number one contendership tag match when it was me and Mitchell against Unholy.
Yes.
And I went to do that rope spot, the FU off the top rope.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
The bottom rope was a little too loose, and my foot kind of slipped. So when DJ was over, I had to actually like tuck his head in my like wing here to like make sure that he didn't land on his head, because just the way that he didn't get all the way over because his foot slipped off the post and my foot slipped off the rope. So it was just kind of a mixed thing where I had to grab him to make sure he didn't crash on his neck. So
that's a really like split second timing issue. That's like really timing.
I didn't even notice I did it until I got backstage, and even Brogan came up to me. He's like, dude, you just saved his life. And I'm like, what do you mean? And I looked back on it, and I had to I just instinctively tucked his head into my wing to make sure he didn't land on his neck.
Well, I'm glad that we're getting you here off this rather than getting you off what could have been. I mean, that's always
for real.
Good thing. I mean, that's certainly. But that's all we'll say. We'll move on from that. I try to bring it and incorporate humor these days on Sportswire. It seems to work. The lovely Xena likes it. Let's see. Michael Blacker likes to say, if I ever run out of interviews, yes, I will try to get you. I'll be honest. You never know. I would say never on Sportswire. There's a list of people that want to come on, and definitely you're on my list. But your father-in-law might be a more interesting interview because he's a ref and he's like the guy in XCW. So that might be more of an interesting one with your father-in-law Festus here. Want to say hello again back to Mr. Delta, and he says if I wrestled on the pre-show, yes, well, I did. Yes, I did mention that. I think the post-show conference also you were on, and then obviously you were shown during the show itself. But I did hear about something called Encounters, which is again first episode 2 weeks from today.
Yep.
Void would be the biggest Delta driver ever. Well, yeah,
that's fair. That's a fair statement.
Could be. Well, if I'm not mistaken, I think in the prior show, didn't he and Brady Branson wrestle? If I'm not mistaken, was it him and Brady Branson, or was it him and was it him and Corey Lee? It was one of them. One of those matches.
One of those two. I can't fully remember.
One of those two. That was a few months back when he had a run in
Yeah.
XCW. So listen, never say never, and I'm sure somebody will correct me on that. I want to say a little. Speaking of other big men who are world champions, the DBW champion, Mr. Judgment himself, who is here, and he says, "Good evening, mortals," and he's another big man, another great, would be another dream match. You and certainly Mr. Judgment, because you've also been a former world champion. And he also says, conversely, the final boss is always looking for more souls to consume to fuel my resolve. And he's in Maryland, you're in Indiana, so I mean, I'm not quite sure what the distance is, but obviously he's Mr. Judgment, you're Julian Void Jacobs. Judgment and Void sounds funny. It sounds like it could be a good thing, but never say never, I suppose. And
I mean, a therapist in a judgment, so I mean, something could work out there.
Listen, never say never.
Never.
And want to say hello to somebody else who is out there, Mr. Wildcard Jason Storm, who's coming off a very successful win at ROEW's anniversary show against another big man, another former world champion, Mr. ADT, not the security home system, but certainly Jason Storm broke into that security home system and what he did to ADT, because ADT now is on the shelf because of what Jason Storm did to him. So we certainly say hello to him on a successful triumph at anniversary against ADT, who certainly, again, his security system has been broken, so certainly he'll have to try to become something else. What's the other security system these days? Is Ring, Vivint? Maybe he can try to name himself Vivint or Ring, and maybe that'll work out.
Yeah.
One of those names, but obviously we say hello to Jason. But I want to ask you a question, Carmen, because I mentioned encounters, right? But we have Viewers' Choice Awards coming up. I had Parsley on, and we were campaigning for him to win a couple of different awards. Obviously, the tag team titles came up, and I'm thinking this year, because you were a champion also, and you were the hardcore champion, and obviously you're in the running for that. And I would have to think right now, because we know that the award show is going to air 2 weeks from today, it would be a big deal going into 24, Julian Void Jacobs to win the Viewers' Choice Award in XCW for that hardcore championship. I mean, tell us about it.
Well, I mean, I've had a few. That'll be my only nomination for this year. I've had quite a few over the years, but it would mean a lot, man. I think I held it 2 different times this year, or one or.
I think it was early in the year, and then you had it
earlier in the year during the summer, early summer.
Yes.
Yeah, and there was a thing with the hardliners where I was telling Pat that Miano was saying he was the problem, and I was telling Miano that Patrick said that he was the problem. And
Miano eventually turned on him. Yep.
Yeah, 100%. That was crazy too. So. I don't know. It would mean a lot, just going into 24 with another certificate of, showing what I can do and what I'm capable of going into 24.
So would that be, I know we ended not on the note that we hoped for, but let's say winning the Viewers' Choice for being the hardcore champion this year, would that, for you, let's say, give you a springboard, kind of like sometimes in football, when they say a team wins their last couple of games, they springboard into next season with something to look forward to point as momentum. If you were to win the Viewers' Choice as the hardcore champion of the year, would that be something that would give you a springboard into next season for maybe a little bit more success, or a void of gold you haven't had recently?
Yeah, it for sure would. It would fill that void a little bit. But what would really get me going would be beating the real ones, getting another chance at them.
So you want to crack at them again. So let me get this.
I want to crack at them again. Parsley, that was a fluke anyway, and he knows it.
So basically what you're saying then was that really they got lucky, and that Slater and Parsley still toe-to-toe, they can't hang with you. Or basically what you're saying is that, let's say out of 100 days, that you and Mitchell Maverick would beat them, I don't know, 80, 90 times. Is that what you're telling us? Something like that? Is that what you're saying in real life?
Me and Mitchell, we were just, we were contemplating on our next move, and next thing I know, I'm getting hit off the top rope from Justin Parsley flying. So no, it was, they got us off guard because we were trying to, reconcile what we were trying to figure out, and they caught us blindsided. It wasn't fair. And
I gotta think, you guys have to be bothered about what they've said about you guys, calling you guys EBW rejects. I mean, that's got to eat at you. You're a big man, sir.
A little bit. And that's the thing, playing basketball when I was a kid, I was always, I was I'm not a skinny guy. I was always picked
I
last.
wasn't gonna think so.
Kind of felt
I
like a
didn't think so.
reject, but like,
I wouldn't call you a
I ain't no
reject.
damn reject.
Listen, you're
I'm a
6'3". Listen, I know big guys like one of my buddies, Steve Saperstein, is like 6'5", and we've been friends for so many years. And I would say, oh, you ever feel like a reject to him? He would say, he'd look at me and say, no, absolutely not. One of my other buddies is Anthony Finkel, who grew up in Brooklyn. He was 6 foot your height. He
Yeah.
wouldn't consider himself a reject. You're no reject. You're 6'3".
Yeah, I'm 6'3". I ain't no reject.
Maybe it's them then. Maybe you think maybe something's bothering them. You think maybe that they have the void because they've proclaimed themselves to be the foundation, and
They claim
maybe
to be the foundation, but there's a whole void in their foundation system they got there.
they don't have the foundation of the ceiling and the
Yeah,
brick.
how are you gonna have a foundation and then build a glass ceiling? Like that just seems unsafe at this point.
I guess those that live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. You're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So you guys want another
Because
crack?
then you got a 6'3", 389-pound guy standing on your glass roof. You think that's gonna hold? I doubt it.
But now, what did you think though about Mr. Parsley though being upset about that whole situation with Mandy? I mean, that was another thing where you were trying to I guess correct the situation several weeks back. I mean, he was visibly upset about that, and he didn't want you to be involved in that. I mean,
Yeah,
you want to talk about that for the audience?
I'm a psychiatrist by trade.
You
I
look
went
like
to
one with glasses, though. You look like you have that psychiatrist.
Of course, I was trying to rectify the situation. She freaked out. He thinks I touched her. I didn't. No, but if it's gonna get in his head, I'll let him believe I did. Anything to get an edge on Justin Parsley is anything I can get.
Are you trying to tell me that there's some insecurities there that he has that he's not trying to? Is that what you're trying to tell me here, sir? Live?
That could be. I think so. Maybe. They always say the guilty one's always the one to accuse.
Wait.
I'm going personal here. I'm getting personal. Maybe he's stepping out, and then he's trying to think that she's stepping out, and thinking that I'm the one trying to step in. You see what I'm saying?
So let me get this straight, Julian Boyd Jacobs. You're telling me that it's Justin Parsley that's actually the one that's sort of involved in these problems that Mandy has had? I mean, is that what you're trying to tell me here? And that's how your
psychology is a hell of a thing. What was that?
And that's where your psychiatry background comes in, right?
Yeah, of course. It's reverse psychology, man. He wants all of you guys to think I'm the problem, that I'm the one with a BS degree. Okay, let's take a step back, Parsley. Let's really talk about it.
I got a lot of comments here about this here. Before I do that, first, Mr. Judgment says he enjoys XCW's product. Absolutely, and we love DBW. Michael says he'll be entertaining. He's got dad jokes and daddy issues. Well, I don't have that, but I want to come back to a more serious note. Mr. Parsley, he has a ton of comments. Let me get to them here. He's very upset, by the way, right now. Parsley is 2-0 versus Void. If you're into the stat lines, see what you and my 7-foot friend can do in the ring sometime. Everyone's breaking glass ceilings now. This has to be some sort of gimmick infringement. And he also wants to know, what school did you get your degree from?
Southern Hampshire Institution of Technology.
And they specialize in these types of things? Is that what you're telling me?
They sure do. Yeah, I had to take a 7-month online course to get just a basic degree. Had to go back for another 2.5 months to try and get my master's in psychology, which I got.
Okay, and that basically qualifies you then.
Qualifies me pure and thorough. 100%.
Are you regularly practicing then as a psychiatrist? Do you have clients? Do you have people that you regularly talk to?
I had Justin Parsley on my couch.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's really personal there. So you had Justin Parsley on your couch.
I had him on my couch.
And what was that experience like?
If I could remember what show it was a few months back, and we were he was going through some stuff with Brogan O'Shea,
Oh, that's right.
And
Yes, I do remember.
yeah,
You know what? Thank you for reminding me. Yes,
yeah,
you did have him on. Yes, I
I
remember
sure
that.
did.
Yes, you did in
Yeah,
the summer. Correct. That's right.
yeah.
You did have him on your couch. Yes, you did.
So yeah, I think Parsley is a little more guilty than what he puts the whole scenario out to be. You know what I mean?
Interesting. That's right. You did have him on there. That's right. I
I did.
remember that now. I remember it very well. He's got a couple things to say though toward that. He gives an emoji that's not so happy, and then he also wants to say, "This you don't say."
Yeah, yeah. I didn't. I mean, I chose the college I went to, but I didn't choose the name of the college I went to. Does that make sense? It's not
Yeah,
my
I
fault.
mean,
It's got a
so
really
yes, I see
unfortunate
what he's trying. Yeah, I see
acronym.
what he's trying to do. I see what he's trying to do. But I mean,
Yeah.
if you went to Hampton Institute of Technology, right? Southern Hampton Institute of Technology. I mean,
So Southern Hampshire Institute of Technology. Yes.
Southern Hampshire Institute of Technology. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, that certainly does qualify you. If that school is an accredited school and they can help you in becoming a psychiatrist, I mean, people can't choose where they went to school if it helped them get ahead, I suppose. I mean, so he's certainly not happy with that.
Yeah. No. No. He throws that up in my face every chance he gets, which I guess is fair. But I mean,
But what
who's got
about the
this?
2 and
Who's
0?
got the?
He's had success with you
Yeah.
singles and
He's
tag.
2-0. He's 2-0. If you want to really look at the stat lines, but
Singles and tag. Yeah, singles and tag had success
yeah,
against.
he's got me twice. But what he doesn't know is third time's a charm, right? So
I've heard that. I mean, some people say
yeah,
the hardest thing. Well, they say the line is in sports. If we're going to go to the stat line here, we're here speaking with Julian Voigt Jacobs of XCW. XCW, of course, is one of our favorite companies, and it's good to be back home talking XCW here. And all the links for XCW are below. They say in sports, the hardest thing to do is to beat somebody 3 times in a season. So 3 times in a given year, right? You and Parsley, right, would be twice. And a third time coming up in 24 would be 3 times in a year.
that's
So
true.
what you're trying to say, really, what you're trying to say toward him is that it's going to be really more difficult for him the third time than it was the first 2 times, just because of that psychology. Going back to your psychiatrist background, that the third time's a charm because he can't beat you 3 times.
No, nobody in the company can beat me 3 times. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on me again. But third time, I'm gonna hit you like a brick.
Okay, let me ask you a follow-up question. I'll tell you, let's play along with this for a second, right? Okay, let's say you guys get this shot. Let's say, hypothetically, you get this rematch and the season starts in 24 in a couple months.
Yeah.
And let's say you do win these titles. Now, do we think that Mr. Blaze and Mr. Jones, all of a sudden, will they accept you into EBW? I mean, do you think that possibly that they would say, you know what? All right, guys, you got it right. You got some gold for us. I mean, do you think then they'll all of a sudden decide to allow you in to EBW?
And that's a hard question to answer, and I'll tell you why. And that's because 2 different reasons.
Okay.
Number one, Chris Jones is the most unpredictable person on this planet.
I've had him on the show. He's quoting me live on XCW TV. Well aware of it.
He is unpredictable. Unpredictable. So you never know where his mind's going to be 1 minute from the next on anything, because he changes his mind more than some women change their underwear, right? So.
Well, I'm sure that my princess there, Xena, will probably have a complaint about that, but that's here nor there.
Well, I didn't say all. I said some.
Oh, okay.
But no, and number 2 is EBW is, I mean, they're not near as successful as they were the first time around. So who's to say?
Absolutely. Listen, and when Corey Lee was here, and we talked about that with him, and he's another guy not aligned with XCW. I mean, there's no question that EBW right now, I don't want to say it's a shell of itself, but it's certainly half of what it once was.
Yeah, and who's to say it's going to be around more than the next 3 months? Like, who's to say it's going to be around all year next year?
I don't know.
Honestly, like, you know what I mean?
Listen, let's think about it. Right? When was the last time Miano Diaz won a match? I mean, James Cerebral lost yet again. I mean, he took possession of the EBW title back, but couldn't win. Okay, he got the hardcore title, fine, but EBW would like that title back. I mean, Brady Branson came up. He lost the title, and ACT took it from him. I mean, they don't have the tag titles. They don't have the international title. Leon Lux has that. So, I mean, Like, what does EBW have that they can say, you know what, we've got this?
And that's another good question. And the one thing that I can answer to that too is Chris Jones. They have Chris Jones. And with
Well,
Chris
Chris
Jones,
Jones is Chris Jones. I mean, listen,
yeah, exactly. You know, championships or not, Chris Jones is gonna get what he's gonna go after. You know what I mean?
oh,
Like,
he's Chris Jones. Chris
yeah,
Jones is Chris. I mean, he's like, he is the GOAT. I mean, it's pretty much, Corey Lee and Chris Jones flip a coin. I mean, there's no
yeah,
question. I think Chris maybe overall, Corey more maybe in the ring, but the point is that it's Chris Jones, so it's almost like it's like Tom Brady in football, right? I mean, I'm not a Tom Brady
100%.
fan.
Yeah,
It's like Tom Brady. It's like you're not going to go bet against Tom Brady. You're not going to bet against Chris Jones.
yeah, that's very true. I hate
Okay,
to admit
well,
that too, man.
no, so do I. Listen, so do I. But I will tell you though. But here's what I would like to admit to you, sir, if you don't mind, if I could admit this, that Mr. Jones is going to come back onto Sportswire. I could admit that to Mr. Jones, and I could bring you up, and maybe I could ask Mr. Jones about you and Mr. Maverick. Would that be, you think, okay? Putting on your psychiatrist cap on, that I could actually bring up you and Mr. Maverick about what his opinions are about you guys and maybe the future of EBW? You think that should be something I should do, sir?
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm gonna just throw it on the line and say, you know what? Have fun with it. Just go for it.
Just
Yeah.
ask him anything.
Just ask him anything.
Okay, so you know what? I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to bring Chris Jones back on in a few weeks. Mr. Jones, we spoke with Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones will come back to Sportswire Radio. And in fact, I'll even go further. Mr. Jones, because we already know he's a Hall of Famer. We know he's the GOAT. We're going to make sure that when we bring him on again, we're going to induct him into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, because there wouldn't be a Hall of Fame or any Hall of Fames in this sport without Chris Jones. So I'm going to bring back Chris Jones, and I'm going to ask him these questions. I'm going to ask him about the future of EBW, and I'm specifically going to ask him about your psychiatry skills. I'm going to also ask him about what he thinks about maybe you guys getting that rematch against the real ones who were the foundation of XCW and tag teams in this sport, and see if he has an opinion on that. So I'll certainly see, and I'll let you know when that'll be. And I'll also let you know that we're going to have more XCW coverage coming up, because, by the way, I'm going to also have on Mr. Blackheart, who does commentary for us. He's going to come on the show. I don't know when, but I promise you I'm going to bring him on. And I'm going to have plenty of more XCW talent on here. And by the way, Mr. Parsley, going to bring back Mr. Parsley on real soon, and I'm going to ask him about some of these things that you're saying tonight. So I'll give him the opportunity to respond to some of these things you've said, trying to turn the tables on him and bring up this word reverse psychology. So how does that sound to you?
Sounds fun.
Well, we'll certainly do that here, and we are here with Julian Void Jacobs, and we're here for a little while longer. Again, if you like XCW, please support XCW and all of these great platforms: Facebook, XCW Shelbyville; Twitter, XCW Wrestling 1; Instagram, XCW_Shelbyville; also YouTube. If you want to watch Final Chapter, if you want to watch the Viewers' Choice Awards, if you want to watch Encounters coming up, you can do that. XCW Shelbyville. Access for all XCW related content. Definitely the winter. You're going to stay inside. You're going to stay cool, warm, whatever it might be, and whatever you might like. Just hang out with XCW and the likes of Julian Void Jacobs, plus much, much more here. We are here with Julian Void Jacobs for a little while. You know, I wanted to ask you, because obviously going into 24, we want to see more success from you. Obviously, maybe you'll win the Hardcore Champion of the Year. Maybe that'll help you going into next season. But you've been a world champion before, and you've held this company's most prized possession. And I wanted to ask you a twofold question on that, sir. A, what did it mean to you to be the XCW World Champion? How do you use those memories of holding that title, maybe also to give you a bigger springboard and further motivation into 24 to hold singles gold once again?
See, that's a great question, because the only time I ever held the world title was in 2017. And I remember I finally won Money in the Bank. And at Summer Mania of 2017, I do believe it was, I got the opportunity to cash in my Money in the Bank on none other than Chris Jones. Got my title, held it for a while, I think
5 months,
3,
right?
4 shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, a
Couple
few
months.
months, and ended up losing it to Brendan Stickle at the time.
Yes.
And but yeah, I've always wanted to. The way it felt back then, I felt like I was on top of the world. I felt like I was on top of my. I felt like I was at my best in XCW. I felt like my ceiling was. I'm not gonna say I was plateaued, but I'm gonna say that I was kind of peaked, and I didn't feel like there was much more left for me to do at the time. So my performance kind of fell off a little bit, and kind of fell to the mid card. Um, after the whole ordeal. Um, and in these past, 5 or 6 years, I've kind of been working my way, trying to work back up to the top. But we've got so much good young talent now. It's
Oh
just
my God, the roster
so
in
hard.
XPW,
Yeah, the
it's
roster in
really
XW is insane, dude. So getting back up to that level, I'm not gonna say it's impossible, but it's been a long, hard road, and I'm still managing to get there.
all right. Well, let me ask you a follow up on that because it's interesting because you've been a world champion before and you had this experience, and I don't want to say that it wasn't the best experience, but what have you learned from that experience? It's been a while since you won the title. So what have you learned from that experience that you think about to try to motivate you to, let's say, get back to where if you are in that situation again, you could reclaim that title and maybe do things that you would have liked to have done, but you didn't do in your time as champion back in 2017?
So that's also a very good question. It kind of taught me to, don't get complacent. Like once you're at the top, like you might feel like there's nowhere else to go, but you got guys under you that are fighting, crawling to get where you're at. And if you get complacent, they're only getting better. You're not getting any better. You're complacent. You think you're there. You think, oh, I have nowhere else to go. But reality is the higher you are, the harder you fall if you don't
Oh,
work
I'm
to
glad you
maintain that
said that
level.
because my guest earlier today, who I inducted into our Hall of Fame, the natural born fighter RP Davis, who in England holds 4 major championships and unified 2 of those world titles. I was like, listen, you fought all this time to get to the top, but guess what? When you hold the title, I think there's actually more pressure on you because
Yeah.
now you have to stay on top. It's not
Yep.
easy to stay on top in this sport. It's been proven time and time again. But the biggest example that was RVD. RVD wins the ECW title and he wins the world heavyweight title. I believe it's this ECW one night stand, then wins the other world title.
Yeah.
And he holds 2 world titles and loses them within a span of, I think, 2 weeks because he got busted for weed. I mean, now it'd
Yeah.
be like, hey, you'd probably held the title for like 2 years before, but years ago it was like,
Yeah.
you couldn't do that. But the point is
Yeah.
that he held those titles and lost them like right afterwards. So I think in a lot of ways, I agree with you. I actually think it's a lot harder to keep the title and stay on top.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to stay on top because complacency is a very easy mindset to gather, and it's a very hard mindset to snap yourself out of until you do fall back down to the bottom like I did. And now I'm having to claw my way back up and trying to work through this young talent that XCW has. It's hard.
Oh my
It's
God, the
really hard.
roster now. I mean, you think about
Yeah.
it, obviously Meet Miyano, we mentioned, guys like Aaron Blaze have come in here,
Yeah.
Jackson Law, ACT certainly one of the more younger talents, Evan Phoenix,
Yep.
Hunter Halkin, Brogan's been here a while, but he's still a younger talent in terms of
Yep.
experience. I mean, the roster that we have, your Unholy, give them a big shot. I mean, you really think about the roster, the younger roster. XCW to me, and I'll get to comments in a second, but XCW to me is so unique because, yes, you have the veterans. You have the Corey Lees, the Chris Jones, certainly Parsley, Slater. You
Yeah.
have all these guys that are veterans, James Cerebral, Tommy Merriman's back, Leon Lux, Jay Ellis. But the point is that you've got the younger talent that in a lot of ways, it's kind of like, I think XCW to me is a very unique place in that you've got this mesh of young, old, and where you're kind of like in between.
Yeah. And that's tough because when you got guys like Eric Mason, who's only 23, you
Oh my
got
God, another big man. I had him on here,
yeah,
and he's like, now
yeah.
he's trying to defend the New Age title so many times to get that international title shot. I mean,
He's
Eric
trying to
Mason, another guy.
do he's trying to do what I did and he's
Yep.
trying to cash in that lucky 7. I'm proudly the only one that's ever done that so far in XCW. And it's actually it's ironic because the year that it was announced that the New Age was going to be a best of 7, it was so happened to be me as the champion, and I got to unveil the new belt, and then not only that, I got to announce the rules of the belt, and I followed through with it, and I unsuccessfully cashed it in on Brady Branson and lost the international to Brady. So, but but back to my point though is Eric Mason's 23, Hunter Houken I think is 22, 23. I mean they're right
I
about the
think is
same age.
22. He's 22, 23, if I'm not mistaken.
And the thing about it is their talent comes so natural. It's not, you can't teach what they do.
No,
You can't.
no.
You can't. Hunter Houken has the most natural ability at such a young age that most guys don't even have in their mid-30s. Like,
I've heard that from people in the locker room have told me. In fact, guys have told me, the guy that I want to watch, they say, is Hunter Houken. And I'll say, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I ask, well, why? And then some of the things that you said, is exactly why you'd want to watch him. But the point is that this roster, I mean, the competition is just so deep in XCW. I mean, it's like, I would dare say it. I mean, DBW would be the other one, but I would dare say that XCW outside of DBW, this is why it's the gold standard. I would dare say that frankly, it's on par with WWE in the depth of the talent and the amount of people on here. Because you have so many people here that really, you got about 15 guys in this roster that could be a world champion anywhere else easily.
It's crazy. It really is because, and that's another thing too, is not only is the competition so deep, but the storylines that we provide. The storylines
are original storylines. They're original.
Yes, they're original, and I don't know how the board of directors come up with all these ideas that keep them fresh and not copy off of different shows or talents or other venues or whatever. It's just we have such a unique way of doing things that I don't even think WWE is as creative as our storylines sometimes.
No, because here's the reason why, and I'm not trying to just BS it because XCW has been we get mentioned so many times on XCW TV, but you think about the roster and the amount of content that we have, the amount of original programming. Original programming. This is why this is the gold standard to me.
Yeah, XCW is I'm not bashing any other backyard company. I know, they all work just as hard. I completely get that. I'm not knocking them in any sense, but the way that XCW conducts itself and the way that we put out our content, the way that we create the content, the way we create our storylines, I don't feel like it's matched by any level. I think XCW has been the golden standard for several years for backyard wrestling.
The company's been around for 20. So I know. And this is what I said. In fact, I'm going to do you a bigger favor. If you think about a lot of these companies, right, and some of them come onto Sportzwire. I'm not going to go and knock anybody, but XCW, if it wasn't for the dream of the likes of Kurt Acid, the likes of Joshua Fletcher and Christopher Jones, there wouldn't be these companies we see in Michigan, Indiana, other places, Ohio, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Alabama, all these places, like I said, Michigan, Iowa, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Alabama. There would not be these companies if it wasn't for Joshua Fletcher, Kurt Acid, and Christopher Jones, who started a company that was revolutionary in the fact that 20 years later, it's still going in almost every yarder, whatever you want to call it, underground, semi-pro, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, the Dallas Cowboys, everything else in between. They don't exist without these OGs, these godfathers.
That's true. And, it's just so crazy to think like that too, because just being Julian Void Jacobs is there. I'm just this big in the world of this whole organization. Like Chris Jones. I mean, yeah, he's Chris Jones. He's the Hall of Famer. He's a godfather of this whole thing. But if you think about it, he's just a fraction of what we're doing.
I know.
And I've been doing this, like I said, for almost 10 years now. And the roster we have now, I wouldn't trade our roster for anybody. Like our roster is top tier right now.
Oh, listen. And again, there's 15 guys I would dare say that would be world champions in any other promotion, any other yard, underground, semi-pro, trampoline, Mickey Mouse, again, Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, whatever you might want to call. I don't know what you want to say it at this point, whatever you might want to describe it as, but that is what the truth is, and that's the facts. Facts are the facts. They don't lie. This is why XCW, there wouldn't be any of these companies. This is why you go watch XCW TV. You watch the storylines. You watch the people involved. You watch the matches. Frankly, you watch the commentary. You watch the editing. You watch the behind the scenes. You watch all the different things that this company has. This is why I continue to say that endorsements are not given. They are earned. And this is why, to me, XCW is really the place to be. And this is really why I continue to say that we're back home covering what we want next year. But again, I'm going to say it one more time before I get to comments. I'm going to get to people here before the end of the show. And the companies in Alabama, Ohio, Michigan, Iowa, Tennessee, all those different places, they do not exist without XCW, Joshua Fletcher, Christopher Jones, and Kurt Aston. That's it. That's it.
And to be trained by those three, the fact that I was around Kurt Aston, and I'm going to say the kind of prime of his life, and he was out there with God, I had guys like Corey Lee, I had Tommy, I had Fletch, I had Kurt Aston, I had Hazard, I had all of these guys train me, and there was nobody that's been more in my corner from the day I started than Joshua Fletcher. That dude took me under his wing when I first started. I was awful. Dude, my entrance wasn't even on cue. And I was nervous because I've never been on camera before. I never did anything like this before. Josh took me under his wing. He kind of, he's like, this is going to sound crazy. He's like, promos. He goes, go in your bathroom, look in the mirror, talk to yourself.
Listen,
like,
they tell singers that. They actually tell singers, right? I heard once in an interview, I think it was I think Ozzy said this once, and Ozzy said that he would actually perform with the mirror. He would basically go and he would just basically sit there and just warm up. I think Dave Mustaine of Megadeth did the same thing. He would go out there and just do the warm-ups in his bathroom. And the truth is because if you can't be your own best critic, nobody else is going to do it for you.
Exactly. And I, in the words of Michael Jordan in The Last Dance, I took that personally. So you know what I mean? Like I took that personally, and over the course of these years, I feel like my promo game has stepped up so much to where I could stand on camera and I could talk about whatever, I can do whatever. And my in-ring has also benefited from that because now
I think you're starting to, and you are definitely an all-around player, and that's why I think that in 2024 you are going to have a big year, no matter what it might be, no matter what you might do, whether it's Justin Parsley and Rob Slater, whether it's an EBW, whether it's anything out there in XCW. Julian Void Jacobs is somebody that we're certainly watching here. Let me get to some comments here. Apparently, someone wants to say "Love you, Dad." So obviously,
that's my son Eric Mason.
Oh. Well, Eric Mason, I didn't recognize him in that because he looks totally different. I was like,
I know, it's crazy. I love you too, son. I love you too.
And we love Eric Mason too, but I didn't recognize him. I was kind of like, is that him? And Mr. Parsley wants to say the editing Blackheart does through his company, Mental Stew, which, by the way, all the XCW big shows you see through Blackheart. Blackheart is the man. Blackheart is the man. And Justin has a funny one here. Is there really a Taylor Swift wrestling tier? Do you know how I climb up? Well, I mean, you know what? That's to be determined. I mean, we're making the points here that, who knows? And speaking of champions here, I'll solve this for you. Our champion, Mr. ACT, is here. And who would be the 15? Well, I'll name it for you. We obviously got Julian Void Jacobs. We got Justin Parsley. We got ACT. Tommy Merriman's back. Jackson Law. We've got Aaron Blaze. We've got Chris Jones. James Cerebral. We've got Leon Lux. Hunter Halkin. Evan Phoenix. We've got Mayano Diaz, I would even say right now. Put him in there. I would say unholy. Yep, Eric Mason. He was my next one I was going to get to. I mean, how am I at 15? Am I already at 15? I mean, the point is Corey Lee. Can never forget about Corey Lee. I mean, Hayden Vex. I mean, did I now get to 15? I mean, Jay Ellis. I mean, you got who else? Do I want to throw Trinity in there? I mean, Fletch. Do I throw Fletch in there? Do I throw Fletch's son in there for 15? I mean,
Jacoby would be a good
Mitchell Maverick. You gotta throw your tag team partner in there.
You gotta throw Mitchell in there. He's got me.
Who else am I missing right now? Did I get the ACT? Did I give you 15? Did I give you 25? Did I give you 20? I mean, that's the point. The point is that people right now in this roster, how about Brogan O'Shea? How about Patrick O'Reilly? Now I must be up to 25 now at least. I just named you pretty much
3/4 of the roster.
In any other place, you put all these guys, Brogan O'Shea, Patrick O'Reilly, James Cerebral, Hunter Halkin, Hayden Vex, Brady Branson, Corey Lee, Chris Jones, Julian Void Jacobs, Justin Parsley, Rob Slater, Mayano Diaz. You put all these different names that we mentioned, unholy. You put everybody, ACT, Fletch, Jackson Law, Aaron Blaze. You put them in Michigan. You put them in Ohio. You put them in Alabama. You put them in Tennessee. You put them in Wisconsin. You put them in Iowa. They would probably be the top dogs.
It's true.
They would be. Yourself included. Just saying the competition. And that's no knock on those companies. Those companies are great companies. And we enjoy what they do. But the point is that shows you the talent here at XCW. As we're coming toward the end of the show here and getting into finals for the last 15 or so minutes, I wanted to ask you, and you've done a lot in your career, but is there one or two moments that stand out most?
Yeah, there's two.
Okay, give me two.
The one I already mentioned was me cashing in the Money in the Bank to Chris Jones, getting my first world title. That meant a lot. And hell, I'll even throw a third in there just for the fun of it. I'll give you three. 380. I believe it was 2019 or 2021. It was one of those 2 years. I should remember this, but my memory sucks. Probably from all the chair shots and super kicks. But I got inducted into the XCW Hall of Fame, and that meant the world to me. They wanted me to give a speech, and I cried. So but that was
don't cry on me here on Sportswire, because I tell every guest at this point, whatever you do, don't cry on me at this point. I mean, I've had guys say this, that, but don't cry on me.
Yeah, but no, the probably the most top tier thing I got for you is the storyline that I was based in 2017. I was there was it was for months on end feud that I had with Kenny Hazard Chaos.
Yes.
To the point where in a couple promos that we shot, he was stalking my mom outside of her house, and ended up sexually assaulting her at gunpoint.
Well, we saw the Raw Tommy Merriman storyline, so that pretty much was kind of like that, almost, sort of.
Yeah. So Brandon Hobbs, and it was the same year. 2017. Hobbs kidnapped Tommy's son, and in that same time, my mom got sexually assaulted by Kenny Hazard Chaos. Wow. It's XCW is a crazy world, man. It really is.
It's a certainly crazy world, and I want to say hello to management here first. And Void versus Hazard, spring of 2017. I heard you say something, right, just before we get to the end of the show. You talked about being inducted into the XCW Hall of Fame. Obviously, big honor, right? And congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But, could I ask you a question if you don't mind? We're live. Could I ask you a question?
Yeah,
So,
go
so
for it.
obviously, yeah, don't worry. This is a good one. I'll make sure you feel good on this. So obviously, I'm sure you heard Sportswire has a Hall of Famer because I've been doing this now for 5 years, right? And
Yeah.
I have done a who's who of people. I've interviewed Major League Baseball players, NFL players, elected official, politician, college basketball players, and hockey players, and obviously a lot of wrestlers around the world. I was thinking, since you've been in one Hall of Fame, maybe in 2024, sometime down the road, you have an interest in being in a second Hall of Fame?
Yeah. I would love to be in the second Hall of Fame.
So you think that second Hall of Fame could potentially be the Sportswire Hall of Fame? You think that might fit the category? You're a former world champion, multi-time hardcore champion, new age champion, tag team champion. 6'3", 390,000 pounds. I mean, you think maybe that a second Hall of Fame you might be able to, fit in there?
I think it fits. Yeah, I think I could fit in there.
I mean, if Justin Parsley's inducted, you might want to be.
Justin Parsley's in there. God, Julian Boyd Jacobs could get in there.
Well, I would say legitimately, though, your body of work, though, would say, you know what? Why not you?
Yeah, why not me?
You're in one.
And that's the thing. You don't bet on yourself, do you? I wouldn't think so. You don't.
Well, you're a psychiatrist. You're a psychiatrist.
Exactly. I'm not a betting man, but I wouldn't put a $5 parlay against me.
Well, I'll tell you what, that makes two of us, because actually in my life, I don't think I've ever gambled. People ask me, have you gambled? You played the lotto? I'm like, well, no, because, I always, I went to school for economics and in business, and I was always told, well, this is a certain thing to do. But I think then, obviously, at some point down the road, we could certainly make some room and some space for you in terms of being in that Hall of Fame. And I'll make that happen. And management, by the way, just heard what I had to say. And speaking of that, what I said, I kind of campaigned for you there. It looks like I did some campaigning for you. And he says that management, we can guarantee that Julian Void Jacobs will win a Viewer's Choice Award this year. Stay tuned. So let me formally say congratulations to you on winning a to be determined award.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, what does that make you feel?
Dumbfounded, shell shocked. I really didn't have high standards going into this because there's so much talent, and we basically beat a dead horse with this, but there's just so much freaking talent on this roster. I didn't see myself winning an award this year, so that being announced is mind-boggling to me right now. So I'm very honored. I'm very thankful. For the XCW Galaxy, everybody watching here on Sportswire means a lot. So thank you all.
Well, again, I'll continue to say this here before we get to the end of the show as we're here with Julian Void Jacobs. My line about XCW will always continue. Endorsements are not given. They are earned.
That's true.
This endorsement of Julian Void Jacobs winning a Viewer's Choice Award is definitely well-deserved, well-earned. And you're going to want to tune in to find out coming up on December the 14th on the YouTube page of XCW Wrestlings at XCW Shelbyville, where you can watch that show and right afterwards watch XCW Encounters Episode 1. I promise you it will be worth it and some, and you'll want to continue to support XCW through and through because they are the gold. Let me repeat. They're the gold standard. And Mr. Parsley wants to say, congratulations on the Hall of Fame induction opportunity and your VCA when and maybe we could even do down the road one day like a Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame match, thinking about it because
that would be cool, like a Ring of Honor type thing, like XCW does.
Why not?
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah,
I was even thinking, because I was reading on Facebook, there was one of these British professional wrestler. I can't say professional, they were trainee companies, and the owner of the company was saying, well, I was thinking he was shut down his business for whatever reason. And I was thinking, well, maybe I could buy his company or something. Maybe I could go buy his licensing, and maybe we could then find a way to almost, I guess, do something with Sportswire. Now, I'm not sure if that individual would want to hear this comment, so I'll leave it at that. But, I would like to see maybe a Hall of Fame Sportswire match of some sort because,
that'd be cool.
We are giving up these things. So, you know what? Maybe when you get inducted, Mr. Parsley, oh, by the way, is getting inducted after Encounters Episode 1, his formal ceremony. And if you saw my first ceremony this past afternoon with RPD, the Natural Born Fighter, I think I did a really good introduction. And we'll see how I do with Mr. Parsley. And then when you get inducted in a few months in 2024, maybe we could have something down the road next CW. Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame versus Hall of Fame. I'm just saying. Don't want to make it all about me. But, we'll see. But I could talk a lot about you all day. I could ask you a lot more questions, but I'm going to keep it and cut to the chase here and keep you to two final ones. First thing is, what do you want to say as your final comments here to anybody that has watched you throughout this season?
I just want everybody to hopefully they saw how much work I've been putting in, changing my mentality to, make a better product for people to watch and enjoy, trying to be more involved in the in-ring aspect of everything. Taking my promos a bit more serious because, they used to just be goofy gimmicks and nonsensical, BS stuff that, I tried to be the comedic relief there for a while and it worked. But to take on a more serious role. Yeah. But no, it just, there's going to be a lot more coming for 2024. Hopefully Mitchell and I can figure whatever the heck this is out. And
you're a psychiatrist. You're supposed to figure it out.
Well, I have it mentally figured out. I just don't have it actively figured out. You know what I mean? So it's,
Well, physically then, we know mentally to figure it out. Let's hope you physically figure it out. And, we'll see what you guys do in 2024. And I'm excited about the season coming up. And we certainly have the schedule out there. It's on XCW's Facebook page. Also, you can find out all the dates ahead. We've already had the season out there. So we thank management. And I'll ask you one more question. Before I do that, I'm going to get to a couple of comments. Speaking of people tuned in from another place we mentioned in Tennessee, the Atomic freaking Titan, who's their hardcore champion. He says, respect the true hardcore king and icon, but he does say congratulations. All right. So
thank you, man. I appreciate it.
And this person here wants to say congratulations on your Viewer's Choice Award. I'll correct that for you there. Yes, obviously, congratulations. And then I want to ask you then, so what do you want to say then would be your goals next season? Is kind of my last question to you. What would be your goals for next season?
All right. Well, I just want to answer this person's comment real quick because I know that name. That's my mom. So I want to say, hi, Mom. Thank you, Mom. I love you. Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in. I hope Mrs. Jacobs, that you're actually enjoying the show. I hope that you find yourself entertained and delighted to see that Mr. Jacobs has filled the void of the lack of coverage that we've had on Sportswire Radio of XCW. And oh, by the way, it's good to be back home on Sportswire covering XCW. So I hope you're finding yourself entertained, Mrs. Jacobs.
Anyway, to answer your question, I'm sorry for that, but
no. By all means, you're 6'3", like 380 pounds. You think I'm going to argue with you?
Wouldn't be a good idea.
No.
But no, my goals for next year is just putting on the best product I can, being I still want to be that guy that people look up to in the locker room like they kind of do now, look up, be the guy that the younger talent can, kind of come to and ask me, hey, how, like, what can I do different? Just like I did, with Kurt Acid back in the day. It means that right there means so much to me as just not only a wrestler, but as a person too, that people can come to me and be like, hey man, what do you think of this? Like, I have this idea. What do you think I can make with this? And to actually give them credible feedback and my opinion matter to them means so much to me that I wouldn't trade that for anything. So for 2024, I want to be the best wrestler that I can be for XCW. I want to be the best person I could be for the locker room in XCW. And I just want to get some more belts on me,
I told you that should be the goal.
I haven't had some in a while. I'm ready for it.
I mean, I would say you kind of overdo it, and your mom's absolutely loving this. So I have to almost ask a follow-up. What has your family meant to you? What has your mother meant to you on this journey? Because your mother's here. I have to ask the question, the obvious one.
Yeah, mom played a big integral part in all this. Obviously we couldn't do the whole storyline back then without her. So it's like, so her agreeing to be a part of that, which was one of the biggest storylines of my career, still to this day. Probably no, it still is the biggest storyline. So the fact that she was a part of that and a part of my road to success that year and watched me cash in my money in the bank, that was really important to me. And that was pretty cool that she was there for that.
Very special moment. And I'm sure you'll have more moments. And I will ask you one more follow-up because mom is here. You talked about being a locker room leader, and some guys would shy away from that, but you talked about that you wanted to set a precedent, kind of like Kurt Acid did. So do you in a way want to be, or do you consider yourself a locker room leader in XCW?
I like to think so. Only, just because, when the two guys I keep bringing up is Hunter and Eric. And when those two came, for some reason, us three got real close. And those two, they kind of latched onto me a bit. They did the other guys too, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, like, they really come up to me and they're like, "Hey, I'm real upset. I messed this up in this match, or, like, I did this or this. Like, what could have I done better?" And it's nice to have a couple guys, or some of the younger guys come up to me and want my feedback of, like, I've been around the block. I've messed up my fair share of matches. Hell, I got a famous moment in XCW where it was I can't remember if it was Money in the Bank 2015 or, but it was a ladder match. I know this for sure. And Chris Jones was up on the top and he was supposed to do a splash on everybody. I was on the whole other side of the whole other side of the ring.
The ladder. Right.
And I was just standing there like this.
Oh,
I just
wow.
stood there. I just stood there. And then I look over and, like, that's a big moment that I messed up. That's probably one of the more embarrassing moments of my career, but it's there. And I could be like, you didn't mess this up nearly as bad as I did this, and to give them that feedback and to help them through it. I like to think of myself as a locker room leader. Yeah.
But you learn from that moment. That's they say in life, that's a teachable moment. You could have certainly easily had given up on that. You could certainly have easily said, you know what? You could have had an attitude and kind of walked away, and it would have been okay, young guy, chalk it up. But here you are, right? And here you are to the point where you're a guy that people trust in the ring. Look at what you did to make up for it in the match with Unholy. Look at the spot with Parsley. Look at what you've done. So in a way, that teachable moment that led you to where you are now. So maybe in a way that was a good thing. And that's why it's a good thing that you came tonight on the Sportzwire Radio. It was a good thing that I wanted you here on this show.
Yeah, it's been a
management today, and they wanted somebody else. But I said, no, this guy, I watched him on TV. I like what I see from this guy. He's got something about him. I think he'd have a good story. And you prove that. And you're going to prove why 2024 is going to be a big year for you, whether it's going to be against Parsley and Slayer, whether it's going to be in singles action, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I have a very big feeling 2024 kicks off for you on December the 14th when you win a Viewer's Choice Award. We see you there for that. And then in 2024, we see you next time and induct you into a second Hall of Fame. So you're definitely going to have a big road ahead. And that's why I continue to say that you definitely filled that void of XCW coverage we were missing here on Sportswire Radio. My last comment here, I'll get to before your closing thoughts. Money in the Bank from Halloween Harvest.
That's what it was. That was what it was. Yep.
Well, that's why management's here. That's why they're going to let us know when we're right, when we're wrong, and they're going to correct you. And management also wants to say Void is certainly someone to look up to in our locker room. One of the good guys, a true legend, very underrated, and extremely valuable to have on our roster. I could not think of no better endorsement than those statements. Because think about that for a second, ladies and gentlemen, for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio. He's somebody in the locker room to look up to. Those are things, that combo speaks for itself. And that's why Julian Void Jacobs definitely spoke and some, and he definitely proved why he is a guy alongside Mitchell Maverick we're going to be watching. He's definitely no EBW reject. He's certainly somebody that he may not even be a hopeful. He may be somebody that Mr. Jones and Mr. Blaze may want to have on their team, especially if they want to have the results that they once had going into 2024. It has been a tremendous honor to have you. First of all, congratulations on winning a Viewer's Choice Award. Congratulations on being in your second Hall of Fame here on Sportswire. I want to turn it over to you here, sir. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? And the floor is yours, and fire away.
There is one thing I've been wanting to do. As we mentioned, Blackheart does all the editing and everything. On XCW on our YouTube. He does this great thing for backstage. It's called Showtime. XCW Showtime.
Chris Jones is next week, right? I think next week.
No,
right?
Showtime is just the backstage. Like that was the video of us playing basketball and stuff.
Yes, I saw that right after the show. Correct.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. I absolutely love Showtime. I think it's one of the best things we have on our series that we do. I really hope to see more of that in 2024. It's fun being a part of.
We have to find guys in the locker room who can play basketball because we know a lot of them can't.
Oh, it's not even about playing basketball, man. We say so many things that should get us canceled, but
well, maybe we don't want to put that on our XCW YouTube page. Then maybe we actually don't want to put that on.
Yeah, maybe we. It's just a fun thing we do, man. It's awesome. It's great to be a part of, and it's just it's good to reflect, and I really appreciate the kind words from management and everybody that's commented. It's been really fun, and I'm very thankful for you having me on. I appreciate it, and I've had a lot of fun. I would like to do it again in the future.
I told you this would be good. You were like, well, you're like, no, trust me. Don't worry. I'm telling you.
I was nervous as hell coming in here. I'm not even gonna lie, man. Last night I was shaking a little bit. I couldn't sleep.
I was like, you're Julian Void Jacobs. And I told you the only person that should be nervous is me because I'm the knucklehead that'll continue to screw something up or butcher something. So I said, I'm the guy that really has to be the nervous one. So I said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. So no, listen, nothing to be nervous about. You did phenomenal. I definitely look forward to the future of you, and you're going to do a lot of great things. And congratulations. Let me get to a few more comments before we sign off. I am correct. It's next week with Chris Jones, but
sometime later with Chris Jones.
Part two, by the way. Part two. Thank you for reminding me. Want to say hello for our buddy, Mr. Ace Reed of the Wired Up podcast in Australia. It's 3:37 p.m. their time there. How you doing, Ace? BWU Wrestling on their YouTube page. Also, management wants to say we also have on-the-spot free time interviews, showtime, and much, much more here coming up this winter. And definitely my very lovely friend Zena wants to say she would play one-on-one basketball against me. Well, I would certainly want to make sure that she wins, but no kidding aside, I'm sure that she has a lot better game than I do because I don't have much of a game these days. The only game I might have is kind of butchering and mispronouncing names here on Sportswire, but that's here nor there. And your mom also wants to say thank you for the show. I would hope it's entertaining. I would hopefully hope the entertaining is at me because certainly I hope you can have fun at my expense. But no seriousness, Mrs. Jacobs, thank you for tuning in. I hope you tune in the next time when we induct Mr. James into round 2 of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame for a round 2 of his interview. And also, Mr. Parsley wants to say you did great, bro. You were my first singles match back this season. We had a banger. This interview is a banger too, but we'll see about part 3 though. Part 3 between
part three. Parsley, I love you, buddy.
We'll have to see if it's going to be the same outcome, but I want to say congratulations on winning a Viewer's Choice Award. Congratulations on getting into your second Hall of Fame here in 2024. I'm looking forward to the future of you. Happy holidays. I can't wait to tune in on December the 14th for the Viewer's Choice Award and see what you win. And thank you for your time. Thank you for filling the void that we missed here these past few weeks on Sportswire Radio without XCW. And welcome home.
Thank you for having me, man. It's been a lot. Happy holidays to you and your family. I hope you guys have a safe trip.
I definitely will have a safe holiday, I hope, and I'll definitely hope I have a nice holiday watching XCW coverage and also seeing XCW talents like Chris Jones, Justin Parsley come on here, and maybe Mr. Fletcher, I'm sure, will want to come back for his round 2 in December. But a lot more coverage ahead, but thank you, everybody here. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station. If you are here for the first time, please subscribe to our YouTube page. We are on YouTube here, so if you want to see past, present, and future XCW shows, that's the link. Also, I have an internet radio station 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can check that out here on sportswireradio.org and also follow XCW and all of these platforms ahead. And if you're on sportswireradio.org, you'll go back to your regularly scheduled program, and I'll be back here tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, with the IMF and some names called Omen Black, Soldier GP, much, much more. And they might be addressing XCW and Mr. Parsley and also Mr. Slater. So stay tuned for that. And also, Mrs. Jacobs, yes, don't forget, which I do for XCW, hit that notification button and hit it for ours also, because I'm definitely plugging XCW a lot. So, and I'm also featured, by the way, in XCW programming. Blackheart's mentioned me, Chris Jones, Fletch, all the guys have mentioned me. So please support us. But good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. On the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio.